Hello and welcome to the Restore Tranquility channel. My name is Siobhan. If you like what you hear today on this video, please consider subscribing to the channel so that you can be notified as to when we upload a new video. Today's topic is going to be one that is hard for most people to talk about, but it is necessary. This month, September, is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And this topic, strange to say, is near and dear to my heart. I spent many years working at suicide and crisis hotlines. And the goal of answering those phones is to basically help someone who is in crisis and thinking about suicide, has maybe even a plan for suicide, um, to help them to get some help, to seek out help rather than using suicide as their alternative. I worked those hotlines for many years and then decided to become a therapist, a psychotherapist. And so now I work with people on the other side of the mental health process and helping people talk through the things that are going on in their lives, whether they're feeling depressed, whether they're feeling anxious, suicidal, and any other symptoms that come up in reference to mental health. And so, in those years, one of the things that I noticed was that oftentimes, if people were thinking about suicide or had a plan for suicide, they would often reach out at some point, either to one of us at a hotline or to someone in their lives. And it's really making a bid for connection, for support, asking for support, even if they're not using those words in particular. So, what we're going to talk about here today is a little bit of the statistics that are going on right now as they stand, and what you, as someone who might be connected to someone who's struggling with their mental health right now, what you can do to help to be uh, supportive of them. So I'm going to take a few minutes to kind of look at the stats because in the last 10 years or so, the statistics have not actually gotten better in reference to suicidality in this country, but they've actually gotten worse, unfortunately. And some of that, I'm sure, is due to the mental health crisis that we're having or experiencing in this country, as well as the recent COVID pandemic and that we've experienced around the world. And then some of the things are socially motivated because of what's going on in our current society. So, in general, when we talk about suicide numbers or death by suicide, oftentimes it's usually men who complete suicide more often than women. It's about 79% more that men will use that option, whereas women less so. There is a shift that we're seeing too in certain groups, like in the transgender and non binary communities. Those numbers have gone up. About 50% of trans or non binary youth have thought about suicide at some point. Also, those numbers still remain higher in the general gay, lesbian, and bisexual populations as well. Among the African American communities, from the age of 10 to 24, those numbers are also up in reference to young people thinking about or having a plan for suicide. In the Asian American communities as well, the numbers are also up for youth between 15 and 24. And then finally, also in the indigenous communities, the American Indian and Alaska Native communities, those numbers have always run high, but those numbers have also increased in recent years as well. About, according to the CDC, about 28 in 100,000 will die by suicide, whereas the general population in the United States is 14 out of 100,000 will die by suicide. So these numbers are not great and they have not improved. Matter of fact, they have definitely worsened since the years that I worked at a suicide hotline, suicide or crisis hotline. So, what can we, um, as people who might be connected to someone, to a loved one, might be a family member, partner, friend, acquaintance, a coworker, um, what can we do in order to be a support to someone who might need it? And so, it's really about connection. It's listening actively to someone who might be expressing some struggle in reference to their mental health, whether they're feeling depressed, or maybe they don't use that word. Maybe they just feel blue, feel low in their mood, feel down. Um, that's when we want to like tune in and really pay attention to the words that they're using. Oftentimes, people want to shy away from using the word suicide or asking someone that you love if they're feeling suicidal. And what the research has shown time and time again is that if we, as the loved ones, are willing to say the word, to speak the word, and to ask the question, it is so helpful in connecting and allowing a person to be honest about where they are and what's going on for them. So the question can be as simple as, how are you feeling today? If you know that they've been struggling or they're sharing that they've been struggling and saying things like, the world would be better off if I weren't here, or it would be better for me or for someone else in their lives if they weren't here. Or if they say something like, I wish I could just go to sleep and not wake up in the morning. These are kind of signals that maybe the thought process, at least, might be there. And so, as the loved one or person connecting with this person, you can ask them straight away, are you feeling suicidal? Are you feeling like harming yourself? And waiting for that answer. Now, for some people, if they're not actually thinking that, they're just feeling in a low mood, they'll say, no, I'm not actually thinking about that. And if someone has been thinking about that, they will usually answer straightforwardly, honestly, and say, yes, I have been thinking about that. Your next question would be, well, do you have a plan? Have you thought a plan through? The reason you would ask this question is you want to be able to make a difference, a delineation between thought process, which is suicidal ideation, and actually putting together a suicide plan. Many, many, many people, I would venture to say most people, have had a suicidal ideation at least once in their lives. Let's face it, life can be very difficult on a day-to-day basis. And most people, I would venture to say, have at least thought, oh, if I could just go to sleep tonight and not wake up, or the world would be better off if I wasn't here, or I just want the pain to go away. This is too hard. Suicidal ideation is not as alarming, um, but when someone moves to having a plan, then that's where the biggest concern um, might lie. And so, if a person actually has a plan, then you want to start talking with them about what they can do in order to seek help, right? So maybe calling a crisis hotline, maybe seeing their therapist if they already have one, or finding a therapist that they can start working with who is versed in working particularly with their concerns. And you want, of course, someone who might be culturally competent as well. And in trying to get them help, you want to keep that in mind. And so if they are resistant to getting help, then talking with them about checking in on a daily basis to you or to someone in their lives to be able to make sure that they are okay. And in that process, you want to express your concern and your care for them, and that you want to offer them support, and that you would want to be able to check in with them each day until they're feeling better. And then also asking the person, what do you need? What do you need most, either from me or in your life right now, that would help you to feel better? And talk about those things. Listen to their answer and help them come up with solutions in order to get those things in their lives. Another way that you can help is to encourage, of course, the professional help that we talked about for them seeking out either crisis hotline or therapy. Staying connected even after the crisis seems to have passed. Connection is one of the biggest things that you can offer, because when a person is feeling suicidal to the point that they've created a plan, they are often not feeling connected to the people in their lives. And so offering that outpouring of connection and support can be very helpful, whether that's texting, phone calls, video chat, getting together in person or stopping over and seeing them, checking on a person. We don't do that as much in our society as we used to, but checking on a person can go such a long way. I heard a story the other day um, about one of my favorite artists who was creating a music video in a town and that included a bridge. And he saw a woman on the bridge who looked like she was in distress. And he walks over to her and starts a conversation. And lo and behold, she was on that bridge to commit suicide that day. In the conversation that they had, he was able to talk her down from there and help her to seek support, help her to get help. It's one of the most beautiful things. And the fact that it happened during this time of the year in September with Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, I thought that just showed a beautiful example of what we all can do, whether we know a person closely or not, is to be a support, to really provide authentic connection to someone when we see that it is needed in that moment. Another thing that we can do for loved ones is to create a safety plan Helping a person to develop a safety plan is really key. Helping them to create coping strategies, emergency contacts, and steps to help them feel better if they're feeling overwhelmed in their lives. The other piece too to think about is this is especially when you're really close to a person and know a little bit more about their home life, right? Removing the means by which they might commit suicide or complete suicide. For instance, if you know a person is a gun owner, take the steps that you can take in order to remove the guns from their reach or from their home. And that could just be asking them to give them to you for safekeeping. There is also a law in Maryland and in some other states where you can get the help from the courts or the police in order to do that as well. Um, if their plan includes possibly taking medication over the counter or prescribed, you can remove those medications from their home and keep them for safekeeping until the crisis passed. So those are a couple of examples. The other piece is to also educate yourself about what the resources are that are out there. Knowing what the crisis hotline numbers are so that you can give them to the person who needs the support. And we'll talk about what those numbers are shortly. Also, knowing the therapists that might be available for that person or helping them to find a therapist that might be available for them to start doing therapy and to get the kind of help that they need. Also, knowing maybe where the emergency services are in your area. If a person actually needs to go in for an evaluation in the urgent care or ER so that they get the kind of help that they need if it's that severe. And then also taking care of yourself. When you are a support for someone else who might be struggling with their mental health to the point that they're actively thinking about suicide, you'll want to also take care of you, knowing that you also might need to talk to a therapist or someone even at a suicide hotline in order for you to know the best steps forward, in order for you to process what's coming up for you as you have been talking or engaging and connecting with this person. And so do not take your own well being for granted in this process. Um, some of the phone numbers that you'll want to be aware of that either you can use or pass on to the person who needs the support is the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. That was started some years ago, I believe, through the Trevor Project. And it was synced up with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number. And so you can pick up your cell phone or any phone and just dial 988, and you'll get a live person on the other end who can offer support, resources in your local area, and help you move forward in supporting your loved one. The other is the crisis text line, and you can just dial type rather, hello to 741 741. And again, a live person will text back and be a support, someone that the person who is struggling with can talk to. And again, it works very similar to the crisis hotline 988, where they also have resources that they can connect you with in the local community. The other is the Veterans Crisis Hotline, which is 800 273 8255. And that one is specifically for veterans who might be suicidal. And so all those numbers are available 24/7. The text line is also available 24/7. And so those may be something that you just want to keep on hand at all times, um, or to just look up. They're very easily accessible if you just Google as well. So those are some things to consider in reference to supporting someone who might be suicidal, actively suicidal, who might have a plan. Um, many of us are dealing with life issues, mental health issues, lack of access to gaining mental health um, services, even therapy, because therapy can be expensive for some, but there are pro bono services as well. And so if someone you love is not able to afford therapy directly, here in the state of Maryland, there is pro bono counseling available. So that's something else that you can look up as well. And that means that the therapy for a certain number of sessions is free. Also, there's the EAP programs that are connected to many people's workplaces, which gives employees 3 to sometimes 5 sessions that they can tap into with a trained therapist as well. So that's something to consider if they're um, not feeling squeamish about accessing that through the workplace. But the counseling through the pro bono counseling service of Maryland might be a more confidential aspect of doing that. So those are the things that I wanted to touch on today, particularly since we are in this month of raising the awareness of suicide prevention. If you would like more information, you can definitely reach out to us at restoretranquility.com, and just in the notes that you put on our page to ask for a consultation, you can just say, I'd love to hear more information about suicide prevention, or I know someone who might need your services. How do I connect them to you? All right. That's it for today. If you like the information that you heard today, please click the like button and the button that lets you know that you can get notified about any of the videos that we drop in the future. And I hope to see you here again next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.